What's up everyone, I'm Nick. Welcome to the SwiftUI Bootcamp. I am super excited to share this first video with you guys. In this video, we are gonna look at Xcode. Xcode is the software tool that we're gonna do all of our coding inside. So as an iOS developer, you're gonna end up spending most, if not all, of your time in Xcode. So it's really important to get a good, comfortable understanding of how Xcode works, understand the layout and where all the tools and buttons are. Now, of course, Xcode has a ton of features, most of which we're not going to use, but in this video, we're gonna cover some of the basics that we're gonna use in pretty much every video in this course. So it's gonna be a whole lot of fun. I'm gonna first show you guys how to download Xcode if you don't have it already, and then we're gonna set up our first Xcode project. So there's not gonna be any coding in this video. You can sit back and relax, but there are gonna be a lot of really useful tools and tips that I think you guys will benefit from. So with that said, welcome again to the SwiftUI Bootcamp. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something from this video, and let's get into it. So if you don't have Xcode already on your computer, it's actually super easy to download. Just open up the App Store on your Mac and search for Xcode, and it should come up, probably the first result you can see here. Xcode is developed by Apple. It's the #1 tool for developing iOS applications. It is the recommended tool, and I would say almost all iOS developers use Xcode. So it's something that you're going to get very comfortable using if you're going to become an iOS developer. It's also free to download, which is awesome. So go ahead and click that install or download button if you don't have it already installed. And the download probably is going to take a couple minutes, if not like an hour. It's a pretty big file, so you might have to pause this video and come on back. Before we leave this page, I just want to take a quick note that I'm going to be using version 12.3 for this course. And as long as you have version 12.0 or higher, you should be fine. But if you have an old version, I would recommend moving that version to the trash and then installing the new version of Xcode. And when we click on version history here, we can see that Apple's releasing a new version of Xcode about once every month. And in each of these new versions, they're fixing bugs, but they're also adding a lot of really cool new features. And that's why I'm recommending you to use at least version 12.0, because in version 12.0, they added a lot of really cool new features for SwiftUI that we're going to use in this course. So again, just make sure you have version 12.0 or higher. Go ahead and download Xcode, and once you have it downloaded, let's go ahead and open up our first project. Open up Xcode, and we're going to create a new Xcode project. So when we get to this screen, it's basically asking us what kind of project do we want to make. And some of these options are really cool. We can make a regular app, we can make a game, we can make an augmented reality app or an iMessage app. And when we click one of these, it's basically just going to give us a starter template for that type of app. And you'll notice at the top here, we also have these tabs. So for the iOS tab, this means we can make an app to be deployed on iOS. iOS supports the iPhone as well as the iPad. But if we wanted to click the Mac OS, we could then make apps for the Mac, as well as the Apple Watch and the Apple TV. And the really cool feature Xcode now has is a multi-platform. And here we can make a single code base, we can make a single app that can be deployed on multiple operating systems. So we can make an app and then use the same app for iOS as well as macOS as well as watchOS, and that's really powerful. But in this course, we're just doing the basics, so let's just keep an iOS app, and we're just going to create a regular app for today. Go ahead and click Next, and then it's going to ask for some extra details about this project. First, it's asking for a project name. This is basically the title of our app. It's also going to be the name of the folder where the app is saved. So I'm going to call this Swiftful Thinking Bootcamp. But you can call it whatever you want to call it. And then it's going to ask us for a team. Now we can leave this as none for now. If this is the first time you're opening Xcode, it will say none. But as you get more into iOS development, and if you ever want to push this app to, say, the App Store, you will need to have a development team here. And that's basically just an Apple developer account. It is free to make a personal account. And if you want a professional account, it is $99 per year through Apple. And a professional account basically lets you actually put apps into the App Store. So for right now, let's just leave this as none. And then it's going to ask us for an organization identifier. Again, because this app is not going into the App Store, it's not very relevant. But the standard approach to making an organization identifier is to do com dot and then the name of your organization, or the name of your company, or the name of your team, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to leave this as my organization as a template for you guys. And then it's going to create a bundle identifier. And you can see here that this is basically just the organization identifier dot and then the name of your app. And the bundle identifier is basically a unique key for this app, so that if we put this app into the App Store, we could reference this key. But of course, we're not putting this into the App Store, so it's kind of irrelevant for now. But one thing I want to point out here is that because the title, the product name, is included in the bundle identifier, I would recommend not putting any special characters or spaces in your product name. So you can see here, if I put a space in Swiftful Thinking space Bootcamp, the bundle identifier will update, but it will be a dash while my product name is a space. And that could get confusing down the line for some weird reason. And to just avoid any issues like that, I would recommend not using any special characters or spaces in the product name. So com.yourorganization.product name. And then lastly, it's going to ask us for a couple setup options for this file. We want to make sure the interface is SwiftUI, the lifecycle is a SwiftUI app, and the language, of course, is Swift. In this beginner project, we're not going to use core data and we're not going to need tests, so we can leave all this unchecked. And let's go ahead and click next. It's then going to ask us where we want to save our project, and you can save it wherever you want on your computer. So go ahead and find that file and then click create. All right, so we are now inside our very first Xcode project. And immediately it's going to say automatic preview updating paused. Let's click that resume button on the right side there so we can get the preview connected. Give it a second to load and you should see an iPod Touch on the right side. I want to quickly change this preview device from an iPod Touch to an iPhone. So I can do that by at the top here, we have all the device options. And I'm going to select the iPhone 12. So now we can see an iPhone 12 on the right side, and I'm going to zoom out using the magnifying glass at the bottom. All right, now I want to take you guys through some of the basics of Xcode. And first we have the project navigator, and that's this column on the left side here. And if I click this button on the top left, hide or show the navigator, we can actually hide and show that whole column. But looking at this column, this is basically all of the files within our application. So right now we're clicked on the content view, and that's this file right here in the center. So this section in the middle is the current file that we're working in. So right now it is the content view.swift. Then within content view.swift, there is a preview provider, and you can see that here at the bottom. And because there's a preview provider, it's also giving us a preview of that file on the right side. So right now, this device right here is previewing the file on the left side. And you can see that it says text hello world. That's like the template text that when you start a file. And our app on the right side says hello world. And this right here is one of the most powerful parts of SwiftUI. We can see in real time what our code does to the device. And this is super powerful and will save you as a developer so much time, because we can just code and see in real time how it affects the screen. So for example, if I changed hello world to hello everyone, we can see that the preview updates automatically. Now, this might not seem that special, but if you've coded before, if you've used other software applications, usually you have to build and run your whole project before you can see the update. So by having this preview, it just saves us so much time and helps us debug and make beautiful screens so much easier. And on the right side here, we have the inspector. And again, that button in the top right corner can show and hide the inspector. And basically this gives us options on whatever we are clicked on in our file. So right now I'm clicked on text, and here it's giving us all of the options for our text. So we could change the text font to title, and you can see here in the preview that it automatically gets updated to title. Now I want you guys to notice that when we change the font on the right side, it also added the font title into the file. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because as we start actually developing, most of the time I'm just going to start typing here .font .title. I wouldn't actually use the inspector on the right side. But of course, the inspector is really good when you're just getting started and you're not sure what options you might have. So we could change the weight, this is the thickness, and we're going to get into some of these modifiers later, but I just wanted to show you guys in this file here that you could type out modifiers or you can use the inspector on the right side. I also want to point out that this view here, the content view, came preloaded with a text component inside, but we could have created this text ourselves. So we could have, instead of having it default, we could have just typed in text with quotes and then put hi again, and we can make our own text. And that's the way I'm going to do it in most of this course. But if you're unsure of a component or you're not sure what to use, instead of typing in text with the parentheses, we could have clicked the plus button in the top right corner, which is the library, and we could click on the this button here, the controls button, and here are all the types of components that we could put into our view. So I have a text here. You could also search at the top for a text, and then I'll double click it and it will automatically be added to this file. So you can see here that we just added a text without actually typing any code, and it says placeholder. And then again on the right side, we can start updating that text with some font, with some weight, with a color. Now we're going to get into all the different types of components and modifiers that we can use in later videos. But for right now, I just wanted to get you guys used to the structure and the layout of this application. So again, we have the main file that we're working in the center left here. We have a preview of that file in the center right. And then way on the right side, we have the inspector, where we can add basically options to specific elements in our code. Now, way on the left, as I mentioned before, is the project Navigator, and this is all the files in our app. And right now we are in the content view. But as we start developing more screens and more files in our app, there's going to be a whole bunch of files in this area. So right now we just have a couple. And one of the other ones that it comes preloaded with is this one right here, which is the app.swift file. So it's the name of your app, app.swift. And let's click on that. And I quickly just want to show you that in this file, it has the @main tag. And what this means is basically whenever we actually build and run our app to a device, it's going to start and load at the @main entry point. So right now the @main entry point is this struct right here, which is of type app. And within the body, we can see that it's opening a window group, which you can kind of just ignore for now. And the first file that we're going to see is the content view. Now the content view is that content view that we were just working on right here. So when we run the app right now, this screen is what will load as soon as the app opens. So moving forward, I also want to just touch on this project navigator on the top left. If you click this blue bar in the top left, we can go into the settings for our app. So click on the general tab if you don't have it already. And there's a lot of settings that we can do, and most of them are pretty advanced, but I want to run you guys through some of the very basics really quickly. Firstly, we have the display name. So when your app is on the home screen and it's like a little icon on someone's phone, you can change the title that's underneath the icon. So right now my project name is Swiftful Thinking Bootcamp, but that's pretty long to have as the name on the icon. So I might just want to make that name Bootcamp. And now underneath the icon, it will just say Bootcamp. It's also going to have here the bundle identifier if we wanted to change it, but let's leave it as is for now. We already discussed that. And then we have the option to increment the version and build numbers. And really simply, the version numbers are every time I push my app to an audience, I want to increment the version number. So if I start my app at version 1.0 and I push it to the audience, push it to my users, and then I want to go and add a bunch of new features, well, the next time I push a version to my users, it will be version 1.1. And then I'll add more features and I'll go to version 1.2, 1.3. And then if, for example, I had a really big update, something that maybe a major update to the UI or a really cool new feature, I would skip to version 2.0 to resemble that it was a big version update. And then of course we would go version 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, etc. And I want to note that some people prefer to do 1.0.0 and then increment 1.0.1, 1.0.2. This is also fine. It's just a matter of preference. But for right now, let's just leave it as 1.0. And then we have the option to update builds. Now builds work the same way as versions, except builds are within a version. So right now we're working in version 1.0 build 1. And for example, let's pretend like I just made an app and I sent it to my teammates to review. And when my teammates were reviewing, they found some bugs and they told me to fix the bugs. And then let's pretend like I updated those bugs and I want to send it to my teammates again. Well, this time when I send it to my teammates, I'm not going to change the version because it's still the same version of the app. It's still the same features. The audience, the users has not seen this version yet, but the code has actually changed because I edited some bugs. So I would keep the same version, but I would increment the build. And then I would push version 1.0 build 2 to my teammates. And so on and so forth. We would go build 3, build 4, build 5, build 6. And then if we finally push this to the App Store, when we start editing our code again, we would go to the next version, version 1.0, and we would reset to build 1. And then as we're fixing version 1.1, we would add all of our builds like that. But again, for this course, we're not doing any kind of versioning. We're not putting this in the App Store. So let's just leave it version 1.0, build 1 for now. The next section I want to talk about briefly is the deployment info section. And here we first have the option to choose the iOS, the operating system that we want our app to be deployable for. So when we click it, we can see all of the iOS options here. And basically, if you've ever had an iPhone, at some point you probably had a notification saying you needed to update, you needed a software update. Well, those software updates are these numbers. So if we want our app to be deployable on iOS 14, only people with iOS 14 or higher could actually use it. And if someone had iOS 11 on their phone and they opened our app, they would get a notification from Apple saying you need to update your software to iOS 14 to use this app. So what's important to note here is that in each of these new iOS, Apple is fixing bugs, but also adding new features that we can use as developers. So iOS 14.0 has a lot of really cool developer features that iOS 9.0 doesn't have. So it is important which iOS system that you use. And you can see here that iOS 14.3 is the most recent deployment. Now we could put iOS 14.3, and there probably are a couple features in 14.3 that are not available in 14.0. However, I try to avoid using the most recent whenever possible because not everyone updates their iOS as soon as it comes out. So by using 14.0, it seems like it's been out for a little bit of time, and most people probably have updated to at least 14.0 by now. So for this project, let's just click 14.0. I just wanted to introduce you guys to that. Moving on, we have the ability to change where we want our iOS app to be deployed. Now at the beginning, we chose iOS app, and that's why we're getting these options here. But if we chose like Watch OS app, we would have the watch option here. But for right now, we are fine with our app deploying to an iPhone as well as an iPad. And we can leave the Mac blank for now. That's new. I will get into that in another video. But I also want to touch on the device orientation here. And here, if we wanted our app to only be used in portrait mode, we could uncheck these. Or if we wanted our app to be only in landscape mode, we could uncheck portrait, and then we can only use our phone when it's turned to the side. We're not going to do too much with the device orientation in this beginner tutorial, so let's just leave it as it was with portrait, landscape left, landscape right. And then lastly, I want to show you guys here, we have the app icons and launch images section. And in here, we have the app icon source. And this is basically a file where we are saving our app icon. The app icon is the actual image when your app is on the home screen. And we can see that the app icon is within the assets folder. Now you might be wondering, what is the assets folder? And if you look on the left side, there's an assets folder that was created as soon as we created our project. And if we jump into that assets.x assets folder, we can see here that we have an app icon file. Now within this file are a bunch of pixel sizes that we need to add for our app icon. And we're not going to do that in this video, but I just wanted to show you where this was. So this assets.xcassets folder is very important, and we're going to use this a bunch in our project as we start adding assets to our project. And most of the assets are going to be colors or images for our app. But right now we're just going to leave this blank, and let's just jump back into the content view. And let's click resume on that preview canvas so we make sure we are all connected. So in the next video, we're going to actually start coding in SwiftUI, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, I'm Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, and I will see you guys in the next video.